Kia's done it again. If you thought the South Korean automaker's long string of vehicular knockouts was over, well, think again. The new EV9 is the K backwards N brand's latest smash hit. This SUV enters the fray largely uncontested because there are precious few three-row electric vehicles available in the US today. And if you exclude budget-busting luxury models, your choices are even more limited. Filling this cavernous marketplace gap is the husky EV9, which is roughly the same size as a combustion-powered Kia Telluride, though this thing offers far greater performance and efficiency, as well as plenty of unique features. Alrighty, let's start off with a quick exterior tour of the Kia EV9, and we can see this vehicle wears a tiger face front end, which of course is an evolution of the brand's tiger nose grille. This is fairly busy, though I do still find it quite attractive. We've also got LED headlamps and then a very distinctive lighting signature that also flanks this center section. Now on certain models you can also get the star map insert, which puts an array of LEDs sort of behind this panel that light up at night and provide, again, a very distinctive look. We don't have that here, plus you wouldn't be able to see it since it is broad daylight, but just imagine some sparkles in this area. While we're at the front of the EV9, I'm going to take the fob out. I'm going to press and hold this one button here, and that's going to pop the hood, very convenient, and I want to show you the front trunk. This is a fairly large SUV, but the frunk is pretty small, only about 1.8 cubic feet, so you know, there's enough room to put the charging cable in here and then maybe some Chinese food. No, you may not have 3 of 22 with half a portion of 19 in chips. This is not the Chinese takeaway, this is a pearl white slimline telephone with last number redial. Now, if you get that reference, I love you. If you don't know what the heck I'm talking about, well, you can go look that up. It's something that's very funny, that, well, amuses me at least. Moving along the side of the EV9, we can see this, again, is a very large SUV. The wheelbase, believe it or not, 122 inches, nearly 8 inches greater than the Kia Telluride's, while the overall length is 197 and change, just about 3/10 of an inch greater than the Telluride. So again, very similar in size, but very different powertrains, obviously. This gives you, by pushing the axles out to the ends, it gives this vehicle very short overhangs, which always looks attractive, and of course it helps improve the amount of interior space inside the EV9. Now, this SUV is available with 3 different wheel sizes, 19 to 21 inches. We've got the Goldilocks option. These are the 20s, and I like this triangular motif, I really do, though I don't know that I would want it on the vehicle if I were purchasing an EV9. I'm a little bit mixed, but what do you think about these very distinctive triangular wheels? Yay or nay? Leave us a comment down below. But moving rearward, like practically every other EV these days, we've got retractable door handles. If you lock the EV9 here, they will motor in and provide a very smooth look for better aerodynamics. And then, of course, when you unlock the vehicle, they pop out like they are right now. So, you know, you can actually get inside. Kind of important if you're going to go for a drive. Moving further rearward, we can see in profile this is a very blocky, sort of very angular design to the side of this vehicle. It fits in with the ends, the front and the back, which we'll get to in just a second, and it's also very clean. I also want to point out the paint job, which I think looks absolutely fantastic. This is $995 extra. It's called Ivory Silver Matte, and honestly, it looks amazing and it feels even better. It's probably worth every penny that you're going to spend on this optional matte finished paint. But moving to the rear of the EV9, we can see the overall design mirrors the front quite closely. It's clean and blocky, if maybe a touch on the busy side. It's clean and busy, if that makes sense. That's my takeaway anyway. And we've got these very vertical tail lamps that do look like they were borrowed from a Volvo. And I'll tell you, there are far worse automakers to borrow designs from than Volvo. They make very attractive vehicles. Now, while we are back here, let's pop this hatch. Push the rubberized button and it rises up all on its own. and we can see sort of the business end of the EV9 here. Behind the third row, you get just about 20 cubic feet of storage space, which is very comparable to the Toyota Grand Highlander, which I recently reviewed, nearly identical, in fact, about 2 feet of room to store stuff, which is very good. Now, when you drop the third row backrests down, which you do with these little lanyards here, you give it a tug, headrest folds, and then it's spring-loaded and tucks down nicely. I'll do this one on the other side as well. Pull and let it drop, just like that. That increases the amount of cargo space to about 44 cubic feet, but wait, there's more. We can also drop the second row backrests very easily from right here in the cargo area. We've got these 2 buttons here. I'll push the one. That will drop the left side. Oh, we got the armrest got stuck there. Let's try it again on the right side. One moment, please. There we go. See, the little armrests got caught. Those are ratcheting armrests. Very nice for comfort, but maybe not so good for cargo. So anyway, with the second row folded, you get about 82 cubic feet of room in this vehicle, which is very comparable, of course, to other 3-row SUVs, including the Telluride. So very good versatility in the EV9. While we're back here as well, there's more to talk about. If we look over here, if I slide that cover over, we've got an AC power outlet. So you can, go tailgating and run your coffee maker or hot dog cooker or whatever you've got going. And then on this side, there's also a 12-volt power socket. So you can plug in an adapter, whatever, and charge your phone from that, or whatever the kids are doing these days with power sockets. I have no idea, or maybe they're not doing anything. And finally, you've seen this before in other Hyundai Group vehicles, but this is the V2L adapter. It plugs into the exterior charge port, and it gives you an additional power outlet, which is ideal for tailgating. You can run various appliances, or maybe, I don't want to judge, but maybe you're a few months late on your mortgage payment and you've been kicked to the curb. Well, this gives you a little bit of flexibility for surviving. But anyway, close up the hatch here. Let's check out the rest of this SUV's cabin. And let's start with the third row and then move forward because you've got to keep pushing ahead, right? Anyway, pop the door here and you can see the second row seat, of course, is in its upright position, though it's very easy to tilt and fold this forward to access the third row. You've got a button down here and a corresponding switch up top, one that is much easier to hit when you're seated in the third row back there. But you just tap that, and as you can see, the seat here tips and slides forward, giving you a decent pathway to the rearmost accommodations in the EV9. Now, this is not the most generous space that I've seen in an SUV, but it is enough for adult passengers to climb in to the third row, as I will demonstrate right now. And when you are back here, it is surprisingly nice. This second row bucket is at roughly the middle of its travel. It's not all the way forward, it's certainly not all the way back, and I've got a decent amount of legroom here, as you can see. This bottom cushion is also very nice. It's a good height above the floor, so it's not like I'm sitting like this with my knees at my chin. This is good for very long road trips. You won't get as fatigued. Additionally, the backrests are adjustable. You pull a little lanyard here, and you can adjust those to, again, stay comfortable on those longer drives. Other amenities back here include, of course, cup holders, and Kia has included sort of a painted trim ring around the outside, which adds a little bit of production value to this vehicle. In the Grand Highlander, of course, that I tested recently, it didn't have that. It was just injection molded plastic. Again, this piece doesn't really do anything, but it looks nice and it seems to add some perceived value to the car. Beyond that, we've got a USB Type-C port on each side. They've included integrated grab handles. These are probably better used by kids. I didn't really need it while climbing into the third row, but those are good to have as well. And of course, we've got air vents, circular vents included in the headliner here, and they feel to be of very high quality. And this is nice, of course, so even passengers in the third row of the EV9 here, they're not going to roast in the summer or freeze in the winter. You can get some nice airflow to the way back. And overall, this third row seat is very comfortable for adult-sized passengers. But now let's jump up to the second row and see what's going on there. And not surprisingly, these second row seats are even nicer than the ones back there. And of course, they do have ratcheting armrests so that no matter where the backrest is positioned, you can have these right where you want them for optimal comfort. These seats, aside from being very comfortable, are also heated and ventilated, which is awesome no matter the season. Great in the winter, amazing in the summertime as well. Additionally, more air vents for the second row, and they've integrated the climate controls into the headliner as well. Typically, these are down at the back of the center console, but I think Kia engineers put those there because of this. This is a slide-out storage bin. There's a tray on top that pushes back, and a surprisingly deep well for storing knickknacks or valuables that you want to keep away from prying eyes. So this works very well. It feels super slick and expensive, like it's very well oiled. So if I push that back in there, we've got some cup holders as well, USB ports on the front seat back, so your devices can always stay charged. And overall, this is a fantastic second row seat here in the Kia EV9, but stick with me, folks, because there's one more row to talk about, and that is where the action's at. And not surprisingly, up front, there's even more to love about the Kia EV9. As you can see, the dashboard design is a little bit busy, like the outside of the vehicle, though it is very futuristic looking and nicely laid out as well. Everything is intuitive and fairly easy to see and reach. Additionally, designers made a big push for eco-friendly materials in this SUV, particularly the artificial leather as well as the fabrics, and they may be better for the environment, but they feel absolutely fantastic. They've done a great job. These front seats are firm and supportive, very comfortable. Of course, they are heated and ventilated, and on this model, they also have an extendable lower bolster, which is great, so you can kick back and relax while you are DC fast charging. A very nice feature to have. As for the steering wheel, it feels great in your hands. It's nice and meaty, plus it's heated. The Kia logo, K backwards N if you prefer, is illuminated as well. You can't see it right now, but it does light up at night. The switchgear is all of very high quality, plus the steering column here tilts and telescopes at the push of a button. A lot of great features here. Plus we've got, as you can see, painted trim on the steering wheel as well as the door panels. That mirrors what we saw in the third row seat and really ties everything together visually. The controls in this vehicle, with one exception, are all very intuitive. We've got a nice mix of haptic buttons and physical switches. The gear selector is on a separate stalk right here underneath the wiper control. It's a little bit hard to see, but it immediately becomes intuitive. This is also where they've integrated the power switch, and the first time that you climb into this vehicle, you're looking around like, how do I turn it on? Where's the button? And then you'll see through the spokes here the little 0 and 1 icon, and that's where you know, okay, that's how I can turn the EV9 on right there. And like I said, very high quality switches. For the most part, everything is super intuitive, with one exception, and that's the climate controls. We do have some very nice physical switches here on the dashboard, but then they've also got this sort of secondary screen right here, which you can use to adjust the airflow and the fan speed if you want. But the problem is it's very hard to see. The steering wheel rim blocks it, and then it doesn't offer you complete functionality. For that, you've got to tap a separate button, which should bring up a fuller climate control menu, but I don't know why you wouldn't just go to that automatically or use the physical switches. This feels really quite redundant. As for tech, this vehicle comes with not one, but two 12.3-inch displays mounted in a single housing, of course, on the dashboard. This gives you a digital instrument cluster as well as a touch panel off to the right-hand side. Now, I'll start with the instrument cluster. It's not the most attractive design. You can change the look of it a little bit, but I really think they could do a better job with sort of how the information is laid out here. I generally prefer traditional gauges, and this is just a little bit too futuristic for me. As for the touch panel, though, this runs, like other Hyundai and Kia vehicles, a very, very, very responsive and almost immediately intuitive infotainment system. You can spend 5 minutes in this vehicle and really have a good understanding of how everything works in the EV9 here. And of course, since this vehicle is electric, there are some special features you might not have in combustion-powered vehicles. We can bring up this menu here where it shows us our current state of charge, 63%. We're about 5.2 miles away from a charger. We can swipe through here and see some other charging information, nearby stations, etc. I can see our fuel economy history, our range history. I can tap on this icon here, which allows me to set the AC charging limit. So you've got perhaps a lower amperage circuit in your house and you don't want to keep tripping that breaker. You can lower this a little bit so that doesn't happen. You can also very easily set the charging limit. Most people, for most situations, are probably going to want to stop at 80% to preserve the battery's longevity, and you can very easily do that right from this menu very speedily in the infotainment system. Of course, you also get wireless Android Auto as well as Apple CarPlay. We've got a digital rear view mirror. You can turn it off like that or back on again. I always love these because they give you a much wider field of view to the rear of whatever vehicle you are driving. You can get the EV9 with a 360-degree camera system, which vastly improves parking, makes it much easier. And then this vehicle is also offered with a color head-up display, though this particular example is not fitted with that amenity. But anyway, with all of that out of the way, let's take this thing for a spin. I think it's high time we hit the road. So the EV9 is available with a few different powertrains, including 2 different battery sizes. The smaller one clocks in at 76.1 kilowatt hours, and the larger, which is what we have here, is 99.8. You can also get this SUV with either rear or all-wheel drive. Now, this Land model's 2 electric motors provide a stout 379 horsepower and 443 pound-feet of torque, though Kia will sell you a software update that increases the torque output to 516 pound-feet of torque, and that significantly reduces the 0 to 60 time. It will drop it to just about 5 seconds flat. Without the software update, you're looking at about 5.7 seconds from 0 to 60, and the performance in this large, heavy SUV is really very good. You are never wanting for power or torque, but here in southeastern Michigan, it's usually a silver or gray Chevy Equinox that's holding up traffic, slowing things down. So if you want to pass Grandma, you just tap your right toe, and the EV9 will just scoot right around her. As for range, this particular example is rated by the EPA at 280 miles, which is really pretty good, though the EV9 model with the longest legs is the light trim with the long-range battery pack, and that will get you up to 304 miles on a full charge, which is pretty darn impressive. Though I will warn you, it only has 201 horsepower, so if you're in a hurry, you're probably going to want to get an all-wheel drive version of the EV9. When it comes to DC fast charging, this particular vehicle can go from 10 to 80% in 25 minutes, which is really not too bad. The 99.8 kilowatt hour battery tops out at 210 kilowatts, though curiously the smaller pack will do 235, just like in other Hyundai Group e-gmp based vehicles. As for AC charging, the EV9 will do 10.9 kilowatts. Dynamically, the EV9 here is very impressive. The ride is settled, the steering weight is quite good, and there are various drive modes that you can cycle through using a button here at the bottom of the steering wheel. The interior, of course, remains very quiet. There's just a tiny wisp of wind noise, but really that is not objectionable at all. The ride, as I mentioned, is smooth and settled, though this vehicle does feel heavy. I mean, it clocks in at nearly 5,800 pounds, which is a lot, though honestly not very surprising for an EV. Electric vehicles, as you know, are very heavy. This particular model is also fitted with the optional $1,500 towing package, and that includes 2 things. You get a hitch and a self-leveling rear suspension system, and those together allow this vehicle to tow up to 5,000 pounds. So if you've got a couple jet skis or a boat, some snowmobiles, whatever, the EV9 should be able to handle those quite well. As with any modern vehicle, this Kia comes with loads of advanced driver assistance technology. So we've got adaptive cruise control with lane centering, blind spot monitoring, automatic high beams, and a whole bunch of other helpful features. Though I will say the lane centering system, at least on country 2 lanes on secondary roads, does not work very well. It's constantly like sawing at the wheel, and it feels like it's trying to drive me into oncoming traffic or into the ditch. So I've actually shut it off, which is really weird because I have never experienced that issue on any other Hyundai Group vehicle, whether it's a Kia, a Hyundai, or of course a Genesis. Their lane centering tech works extremely well, but for whatever reason in this particular EV9, it seems to struggle on secondary roads, and I really don't know why. Now, we'll get to pricing after we recap the EV9's strengths and weaknesses, but I'll tell you right now, this SUV is not eligible for any federal tax credits. This particular example was built in Gwangmyeong, South Korea, or the Good Korea, as I like to call it, though EV9s will be assembled in West Point, Georgia later this year, so the tax credit situation, of course, could change going forward. Okay, to recap, here's where the EV9 excels and how it could be improved. This SUV offers excellent DC fast charging performance. The interior is beautifully built and made of many eco-friendly materials. The EV9's dynamics are buttoned down and pleasant. This SUV has 3 rows of seats, which is a big deal for electric vehicles. You get plenty of cargo space too. And this Kia's range is mighty impressive. As for downsides, I don't care for the digital instrument cluster. It's kind of homely. The lane centering system needs to be polished. Those climate controls could be improved as well. A skosh more legroom in the 3rd row seat would be nice. And all of this electric excellence does not necessarily come cheap. Alrighty, so this high-end all-wheel drive EV9 Land model checks out for about $74,000, including $1,495 in destination fees, as well as a few options like the trailering package and matte paint job that I mentioned earlier. Now, in the world of modern EVs, that price really isn't all that outrageous, though it is far, far out of reach of many motorists today. Fortunately, though, the base rear-wheel drive light model is much more affordable, checking out for $56,000 and change, which really isn't too bad for an excellent 3-row, all-electric SUV. And I'll tell you, Kia has another knockout on its hands with the new EV9. Next up, if you're in the market for a 3-row SUV but aren't quite ready to go all-electric, consider the Toyota Grand Highlander, which is actually available with 2 different hybrid powertrains. Click right over here to check out my full review now.